happened in Greece, when they got this massive new development, a lot of the smaller homes, when the first climate issue came up, were flooded and people died. So what I'm saying is, the infrastructure right now, the small homeowner, the small business owner is responsible when something happens. And yet there are all these changes. Like I said, the high rises that I see just in this plan, we've got 5 of those new high rises in the last 3 years in our area. And so our pavements have been ripped up, gas had to be channeled up, and it impacted on us. One minor thing is the increase in rats. Okay, major increase in rats, because all of their colonies were disrupted. As a member of the Dean Street Graham Square Block Association, we went to some of these developers. We didn't know to come to you and ask someone to be responsible for the rats in their area that they were displacing. Nothing was done. And in less than a year, I've had an increase of $1,000 in summonses and fines for rats. That's just for rats. Now they're starting with rat droppings. So that's one question. The other one is, when you are building these new commercial establishments, who's got to say so in what the commercial establishment will be and what type of structure will be built there? My third question is the same issue. What does average medium income mean in the context of a community where we are 1/3 of this society and we have 33% of the houselessness? 1/3 of any community we're in, we are 33% of the homeless. And so what does average median income mean? And we're talking about working class homeless, houseless people. I don't understand the numbers.
So you need by we? Who's we?
I'm talking about the community that is there where I live. In that community, we are.
I'll answer 2 of those. The third I'll pass over to HPD to talk about area median income. So I'm Alex, I'm with the Department of City Planning. So your first question was about environmental impacts on adjacent property owners. There's 2 answers to that. The first is who studies it, who determines the impacts. That's us, the Department of City Planning. Our job is to project out how many people are going to be moving into the area and how many jobs are going to be added to the area. With those numbers, we say how many toilets are going to be flushed, how many students are going to enter the public school system, how much new cars are going to be added to the streets, and et cetera. There's a bunch of categories that Jonah went through earlier. With those numbers, we determine what kind of impacts will be. Sewers, for example, was not included in that because we determined with Department of Environmental Protection and those agencies that there is existing sewer capacity. Now, I want to acknowledge that you might have sewer backups from new construction. You still may have stormwater issues. Part of our job is for you to identify specific areas. If your house is backing up, if this intersection is having stormwater flooding, what we do is we include in our neighborhood plan, at the end of the process, the points of agreement is going to include capital dollars for infrastructure investments. What that means is we can go in as a city, work with DEP, sanitation, deal with homeless services, deal with the rat issues. You identify the location, we're going to include it in the plan, and the local elected officials and the department and the administration are going to come together and hash out a capital program that's going to make sure that we're doing this on a meaningful and considerate basis so that long-term residents don't feel the pain from adding and accepting all these other neighbors. And that's a commitment that we'll make at the end of the process. And then area median income, I'll pass over to HPD.
Yeah, so I think we talked about it a little bit during the presentation, but area median income, so it sounds like from what you're saying, your concern is that you want to see more deeply affordable housing in the area. I'll explain what area median income is, but I think that's not really the barrier here. So area median income, as I described earlier, actually has nothing to do with income. It's actually based on the cost needed to afford housing in New York City. So it's based on housing costs, it's based on what the average housing costs for market rate rents are in New York City that year. And that's why area median income rises so quickly when incomes obviously do not. HPD's housing is targeted towards low and moderate income households. Most of our housing though, as I shared earlier, oh yeah, we have this slide here, is really targeting households between 80% of AMI, or that what is now $112,000 for a family of 3. But that's 2/3 of our housing are for households that below that. 2/3 of our housing production in the last decade has gone to households that are below that. So I think it's important to keep in mind that while like the numbers technically can get higher, that's who we're serving, and that in New York City, these are actually like, that, you know, does include folks like at the 30% AMI range who earn $42,000 for a family of 3, so it includes folks at that level, and then it also includes folks at the max that are earning $100,000, which in New York City is considered low income. So these are also folks that are having a hard time affording rents in New York City, and that's because this is a place where we have high housing costs. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So it's going to be Peter, Mimi, Deb, Sarah. Y'all will have to keep track of yourselves now. Mr. Meehan.
So first, thanks for the presentation. I guess I'm going to, because I live across the street from Atlantic Yards. Yeah, sure. So I live across the street from Atlantic Yards in a 28-story building. And one of the things that, so maybe from my experience, I just wanted to kind of ask a question that maybe nobody else would ask. Sure. I just wanted to ask a question that maybe, sure. Can I just simply want to ask about follow-up and the ability of the community to hold you guys accountable? Because I think that if you're going to have programs, how do we follow up and make sure that they, 10 years down the line, that they're still active and that they're still delivering? How do we follow up if something isn't working, like whether it's infrastructure or street management or affordability? So, and also displacement, which is I think a really key question, because there are lots of tools that the community knows we know what can work better than other things. It's all hard, but so what structures do you have moving forward 5 years, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, so that we can keep holding you accountable to deliver what you're promising? Because in a lot of ways what you're describing is very vague.
The first is about transparency. And we have a capital planning tracker and commitments tracker associated with every city-sponsored neighborhood plan. You can go online, you can look at our points of agreement tracker, and it identifies things that the administration and the different city agencies had agreed to, the exact capital dollars, and the current status of whether it's being met or not. And so that's the first is transparency. The second, I think, is a great example of a most recent neighborhood study was in Gowanus in Brooklyn, where working with the elected officials, the community boards, and neighborhood stakeholders, we worked on setting up what's called the Gowanus Oversight Task Force, which was a group of residents and representatives who meet regularly to ask us the status of existing projects, but also to bring issues to us on an ongoing basis. I think as Jonah mentioned earlier, we are not like walking away when a rezoning is done here. We're not walking away at the end of the points of agreement. We are civil servants that work and live in these neighborhoods, and in partnering with like an oversight task force, the steering committee, and the capital tracker, we will continue working with you guys on implementation of the capital and expense programs that we all come to an agreement at the end of the day. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
I'll just say that we also look to you, Peter, and others to tell us what works best. We know that there's a need for accountability, and Gowanus is kind of taking charge and setting an example, but that may not work best for AAMUP or for Community Board 8 or Community Board 3. So I think we're definitely open to hearing, what level of involvement or organization works best, frankly.
Ms. Davis, I'll have to put you at the end of the queue with that. Okay, so you're behind Mr. Meehan, and then after Mr. Meehan, Mr. Bocconi.
We've actually undertaken an environmental analysis, and it's currently ongoing right now. we need to create the zoning, like I said, to project out how many jobs, how many residents are going to be in the area, so that we know what the infrastructure needs are. That's currently ongoing. When the project gets to the City Planning Commission, so right now it's at the Community Board, it'll go to the Borough President, and then the City Planning Commission. When it goes to the City Planning Commission, we put a bow on the environmental impact statement. We say, these are the final numbers. Here's the final impacts that need to be mitigated. And when I say mitigated, means we need to fund capital projects to fix or prevent.
That's in March.
That's in March. And then we work with the City Council elected officials to come up with what's called a points of agreement at the City Council. At that point in time, we say we're allocating X million dollars here, X million dollars here. Sanitation is responsible to implement that $1 million. DEP is responsible to implement that $1 million, and we begin work. That will happen concurrently while development is ongoing. I'm not going to say that we're going to build out sewers or build out street intersections before development starts, because our development plan is looking at a 10 or 15-year horizon, right? Everybody's not going to put their shovels in the ground on day one. It's going to happen over time. And so we're going to build out that infrastructure as work is ongoing. So it's parallel process. We're not waiting until buildings are up before we get on the phone. What I was mentioning earlier is that if you have specific problems now, today, let us know, let the community board know, let your elected officials know. We'll make sure that we're capturing all of that as we build out the capital plan. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
And tell me who you are.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm Sal Franchino, and it's cool to see that there would be like nearly 1,500 income-restricted homes. I just wanted to know how flexible. Sure. Yeah, I just want to know how flexibility is going to be maintained across the uses, because I know there's a huge house demand, and I just wanted to know, because of the whole industrial versus commercial uses. I just wanted to know if there's going to be anything to make sure that industrial uses aren't competing against the need for homes in this plan.
It's a good question. So I will say.
Do you want to repeat it? Just
Oh, did everybody hear the question?
And
Okay.
now you're gonna have to speak louder.
Maybe I'll move to this side of the room.
I'm just mildly concerned that because we have such a strong need for homes, that there might be industrial use competing against home use. So I was just asking about what is in place in the plan to make sure that industrial use isn't beating out the need for homes in the neighborhood.
So I'll just say that we definitely, land use does involve some real trade-offs of what we can do with the land. I would say we're trying to balance different priorities. On one end we hear a strong need for more housing, more affordable housing, more other types of job-related uses. But we also hear on the other end a need to, how do we help the existing businesses there? How do we support industrial uses? I would say, on the zoning side, we are mapping an MX district, so we're not going, if an owner, existing business or owner has a manufacturing business, we're not going to make sure their zoning is not going to allow their business to remain there. And then we also have, as we mentioned before, incentives for job space. On the non-zoning side, we are working with SBS to see different strategies to support those businesses there, particularly the businesses that are vulnerable to displacement, like a lot of the industrial uses. So it's something that we're definitely in the midst of doing. And Tanya, do you want to speak a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We know that generally, also my name's Tanya, I'm from SBS. I'm the Assistant Director of the Intergovernmental Affairs team, but I just wanted to speak to the real concerns that business owners have, right? We want to make sure that if there's any fear of displacement, that you understand that we're here to support you. We have a lot of wraparound services to help you, where if you feel pressures to move, or if you do want to move, we can help you in navigating that process. From closing your lease to starting a new one and getting supports all the steps of the way with our existing resources. And right now we are also exploring to see if it's possible to get more resources as well. That's something that's on the table. And so if that's something that you all want to hear more about, I'm happy to go in more detail.
And I'll just say too, we right now it's very difficult for residential to be co-located with manufacturing or industrial use. So something that we included in our special district, which we have the ability to do as a neighborhood plan, is to ensure a little more flexibility for those uses to co-locate, either side by side or in the same building. So it's definitely something that we're looking at. Hope that is responsive to your question.
Little convoluted, but sort of. I mean,
Okay.
I'm rent stabilized, so I would love to see 1,500 more rent stabilized homes to make it what I have.
Got it.
Questions, raise your hand, please. Okay, the young lady in the green sweater, who I don't know your name. Natalie, come on, let's have at it.
I don't know the exact amount of square miles.
The reason I ask
Yeah.
is that, given that 44% of the and on average, across Brooklyn, there's 38,000 square miles, it just seems like there's too little housing. Like, there's only 4,000 people. It seems like, given that this corridor is going to be very dense, that number should be much higher, like 10,000. Everyone that I know in my age demographic is rent burdened, and none of us, have any reasonable future going to get an ordinary living on the rent. So why is it so significant?
So I'll say for AAMUP, we're focused on a neighborhood plan. So this geography, I would say this is meant to be, this isn't the only part of the puzzle or issue or way we're addressing this. So we also have a larger citywide proposal under City DS for housing opportunity, which applies throughout the area and would create a little more housing everywhere, particularly allowing more affordable housing within some of the mid-block areas. I'll just say too that we also heard, we're trying to balance a lot of goals. We're trying to maximize housing and affordable housing, but also we want to be sensitive to the that this is a very contextual area. So we definitely agree with that sentiment, but we're trying to balance different goals.
Sir, your name, please? Could you speak up a little bit louder?